Well, it's Boob Tube Boys Rewind Part 2. As you can tell by that old-timey sounding thing, we went rewound maybe a bit too far. We're all the way back into the 50s. I'm going to be talking about Father Knows Best this week. I am Spencer. I'm the one who makes us usually do Father Knows Best. We've had one extra choice of that had nothing to do with me, but I'm usually the person, the instigator, the Father Knows Best guy, as everyone calls me in my life. I have Brian, I have Van, they're both here. Van, would you say you know best?
I'd say that I certainly know best as a giant white man living in the 1950s.
You'd fit right in.
People look right up to me with my strong chin.
Brian, I don't think you'd fit in the 50s.
Well, I think I'd fit in the 50s just fine. I know how to polish a counter and work underneath a sink until my husband gets home from his job at the office.
Why, honey, that tool's too small.
Oh my, so is yours.
Wow, some risque Father Knows Best humor. That's what I'd like to see.
Like Bud talking about dicks?
Oh, gee, man, I always bust too soon with a girl.
My saxophone's cut. Why am I doing this voice? Here I am, I'm Rev, and I'm back in Father Knows Best.
My friend Joe wants to come over so we can look at pornos together. Is that okay?
They're only one step removed from that. In the 50s, I guess this is kind of like boys being boys in that porno way. Like, that's the best they could come up with. Different time in TV history. We covered a lot of that kind of thing about Father Knows Best last time. Not going to talk a lot about the show, its background, the cast. Some of it was actually in our...
Yeah, if we played the intro a little longer, it would have done all the job.
You heard Robert Young and someone else. This is a nice American 50s family, wholesome as fuck.
They smile and they point.
We added Joe in this episode. He wasn't in those 2 or 3 we've done before that.
It's a nice reminder that there actually was a time in television where there was actually no consideration of it being art. Like, there was no attempt at it.
I can't resist coming back to the show because it's just such low-hanging fruit for us.
Really is.
Everything that comes out of all the characters' mouths is not on purpose, but it is funny to us, and it's so dated, of course. And it's also very easy to do because the episodes are like plays. They stay in one room for the most part. They do their rapid-fire, corny dialogue, and then we move on to the next scene where more of the same stuff happens.
There's nothing to, turn over and interpret in your mind.
No, there's no analysis necessary at all.
There's nothing going on under the hood in Father Knows Best ever. It's on the surface, and you don't have to activate any part of your brain.
I kind of like
Whereas
that.
last week, lots going on under the hood, lots of activated brains.
It's like a card joke, I guess. It works.
Oh, well, yeah, I got it.
It's a good one.
Huh? How about that?
So this week is Kathy Makes Magic. As I said in our preview that we talked about last week, it's season 2, episode 7, aired October 12th, 1955. Kathy thinks she has put a magic curse on Bud.
I wish she had.
We have many times discussed, we are fans of Kathy, not so much Bud. I think that he has a chance that maybe he kind of grows out of being annoying shit later in the show. Probably not.
I don't
Probably
think,
not.
I think as an adult, that guy was an annoying shit, the actor, because if you're a kid, you're playing yourself. Like, you can't play a character if you're a kid. Come on.
Yeah, he is easily the most annoying to me. I don't mind Betty. She's fine.
I don't like Betty.
She's there to just kind of everyone else to bounce off of the lines off her, though. She doesn't do much. Bud is actually kind of annoying to me. I don't know. He's grating.
Bud is a prankster teen. I don't like prankster teens. Look, I'd rather a teen walk up to me and slash my tires than some teen be like, I'm going to pull a prank and say, gosh. I don't know. Bud is annoying. He's a character that's supposed to be like kind of a, like he's just like Kirk Cameron's character on Growing Pains, like kind of he's supposed to be wild, but he's a church boy and it doesn't work.
I agree with that. There's no sense that Bud is actually in danger of doing something that's like bad, but sometimes they act like he is. They're like, oh, Bud, you're kind of a
chud.
That's Bud 2, Bud the Chud. Chud 2, Bud the Chud. I messed that up.
Bud 2.
How could you miss such
it usually
a
rolls
perfect
off the tongue.
play up?
I never did see Bud 1, but Underground Dweller.
This episode, instead of going any further into the synopsis, I just want to start with the very first clip that plays.
No, we can't do that. You forgot. We have a special game we have to play.
See, I knew about this game, but I didn't know you wanted to hit us with it right away.
Well, like all of our games, we've done this thing 100 times before.
Okay.
I think we've done it on all of our Father Knows
Well, we
Best
can do it 101
episodes.
times.
Van, will you hit the music for this game? And then I'll kind of explain it. Oh, Oh, magnifico! That's right, it's time for Bada Bing Bada Whom? Mob Hits, Base Hits, or Bullshits edition. Yeah!
Of course.
Well, guess what, guys? I'm a middle-aged white man, and I like prestige television, and I co-host a TV podcast. Naturally, eventually, I was going to watch The Sopranos. And that has started. I am about done with the second season. It's very good, as it turns out. As people said that it was, I see its influence on television going forward. It's also chock full of New Jersey gangster types with crazy names. And that's what brings us to Bada Bing Bada Whom? Mob Hits, Base Hits, or Bullshits edition. This is a game we play. It usually has different rules. This week, though, I'm going to say a name. It's going to resemble a name, at least. And you two will work together to tell me if this person is a Sopranos character, a dead professional baseball player active during the 1888 season, or something that is bullshit that I made up.
I do have to say, Spencer and Brian, that I do enjoy that we have come to the point where we now do games that have nothing to do with the episode we're covering.
What do you mean? We've done this every time we cover Father Knows Best. It's super relevant.
All right, so we're working together, though, right?
But yep, and the first name I'll give you guys, Paulie Walnuts.
That's Sopranos. I'm pretty certain that's a Sopranos name.
There is a Paulie guy, but is it Paulie Walnuts?
That's a good point.
It seems unlikely. I don't know. It doesn't sound very scary.
All right, you know what? You've convinced me.
What do you know about it?
Paulie Walnuts. Okay, no.
You don't fuck with Paulie Walnuts.
And it's not a baseball player.
I wish.
That's for sure.
There's Paulie Walnuts with a double off the wall.
So you guys say this is bullshit.
Sounds like it.
It's a mob hit. Paulie Walnuts is a Sopranos character.
So it is, okay.
He is an old man with slicked back hair who wears a tracksuit and lets his gray chest hair puff out whenever he wants.
This isn't the guy that looks like the grandma from the Waltons, is it?
No.
Okay. Because he's in The Sopranos.
Yeah, he is. Well, here's another one. Cupid Childs.
Baseball player.
Yeah, it sounds like a baseball player.
I think.
You're right. He was the Phillies' second baseman in 1888. Cupid Childs, his arrow of an arm never did miss. Uncle Junior.
Boy, I don't know. It could be a Sopranos.
That sounds like Sopranos.
It is. Oh, it is. Now, biologically, it's debatable whose uncle he really is, but he's Tony Soprano's uncle. But in mob terms, we're all family here.
At the Olive Garden.
In the Olive Garden.
Or at the Bada Bing strip club, which is the thing they own. Vinny Chunks Bianchi.
I don't think it's real.
Let's go with bullshit.
Okay, you got me. That's
Chunks.
not real. Yeah, but that is an Italian sounding name. You have to give me that.
Mostly the Bianchi part. I guess Tony too.
That's true. Pretzels Getzian.
Baseball?
Or fake. Or Sopranos.
Could be any of the three.
Oh boy. You went baseball right out of the gate. Let's go with your instinct. Baseball.
That's true. He was a pitcher for the 1888 Detroit Wolverines.
Wow. That's badass.
Baseball
Why do they go
to be cool?
Like, tigers are awesome. Don't get me wrong, but everybody knows about tigers. Wolverines are a little more mystical and foreign.
Or, an X-Man. Because every episode we have to talk about an X-Man.
We've hit our quota today.
Johnny Sacks.
Like
that's S-A-C-K-S.
Okay. Do you want to say Sopranos or fake?
Let's go with your instinct on this one.
Okay, Sopranos.
Yes, Johnny Sacks. He's a higher up level mob boss.
See, I was going to ask if it was like S-A-C-H-S, like Goldman Sachs.
Yeah. Or S-A-X, like Steve Sachs.
Like Steve Sachs.
Who was a baseball player.
It would have been many generations away.
100 years later.
Yeah. The Sachs baseball line is untainted through the centuries.
To that one guy.
Who was fine.
He was pretty solid.
He was good.
Yeah. More hype around him than anything else.
And then he kind of couldn't throw the ball or something. He got the infielder's blast disease or whatever it was.
His arm went sleeping with the fishes. What do you think about Silvio Dante?
Ooh.
That sounds like another Sopranos guy.
Yes, but it's also so on the nose. But a lot of the Paulie Walnuts?
That one is just hard to believe.
Sopranos.
Yeah.
You're right. Let's do it.
Yeah, fine, it is. It's little Stevie Van Zandt. That's who plays that.
I actually saw his other like post-Sopranos show that
you
Netflix
did?
briefly tried to make a thing. I don't think it lasted. That Lilyhammer show.
Oh, he was the guy in that.
Yeah, he
I
was the
didn't know
main.
that.
He got a shot at his own show there. Basically, I think it only went like 2 seasons. It wasn't that good.
It apparently wasn't as good as The Sopranos.
Nope, I don't think it was. He did play like this exact same kind of guy though. That's what that guy does.
He looks like he should play that guy to guy.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but I woke up this morning, got myself a gun.
One of the pure charms of The Sopranos is everyone in it. If you saw them outside of the show, you'd be like, that is a gangster. Just looking at him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Icebox Chamberlain.
Sounds like a baseball player, don't you think?
I was leaning fake or baseball, so sure, let's go
I'm thinking
baseball player.
baseball.
You guys rule at this. He was a member of the Louisville Colonels in 1888.
COL or like KER?
COL.
Not popcorn kernels?
He was a pitcher and outfielder, so he played both sides of the ball.
What year?
1888.
Yeah,
These are all
because this
from...
wasn't real. Baseball was not real then.
Well, then how are you to explain this person who might be a baseball player? Blondie Purcell.
Baseball player, right? Considering how we introduced that.
Sure. Why
Yeah,
not?
he is. He played for the Orioles. They were still around. Okay, we're getting these the last few, and it's going to get really hard. The Big Bank Robber.
Bullshit. Sadly, he's now made his third appearance.
I hope it actually is just a character in The Sopranos after all this time.
Oh, I wish.
No, it's fake. Oh man. Hey, we listen to Tony on this one. We gotta hit the Big Bank Robber before he hits us.
Tony Soprano's got a lot of money. How? Well, he's got the big bank robber under his guise.
Some people think he is the Big Bank Robber.
Or it was the cleanup hitter for the bridegrooms in the 1880s.
And now the Big Bank Robber steps to the plate. Don't know why we're calling the game. The technology doesn't exist to do that yet.
Here's the pitch, the swing, and oh, it's a ground ball. You know, the only thing people do in the 1800s.
Oh, but that one went further.
We haven't even invented the triple, nonetheless the home run yet.
Phenomenal Smith.
That is the most anticlimactic.
It sounds like a devilish lefty, like a finesse guy who had a really good spitball or something. It sounds like it could be a baseball player.
Yeah, maybe a splitter that whoosh, it disappears.
Yeah, I can see it being a baseball player.
It's fake, but why not? Let's go baseball player.
He is a baseball
What?
player. Phenomenal Smith, he split the 1888 season between the Orioles and the Philadelphia A's because Philadelphia had 2 baseball teams at this time.
Did you only look at the 1888 season?
Yeah,
That's
I
it?
specified that in the rules of the game.
Oh, I wasn't listening.
Now, why did I choose 1888, you might be asking?
Yeah, why?
I thought, what would be the year that Van would like the best?
Oh, yeah, I do like that year
It's
now that you
the
mention it.
only baseball season that will ever have 3 8s in it.
Well, 3888 when that happens. I like how I skipped 2888 to go straight to 3888.
So you guys correctly guessed that Phenomenal Smith was a baseball player. What about Big Pussy?
That's a Sopranos character. I remember because my dad and sister were watching that show at the
Talking
time
about
period,
big pussy.
and my dad had to try to find a way to say that character's name.
So your family doesn't normally say that phrase
No.
except for when watching
Doesn't,
The
especially
Sopranos.
not my scholarly father. He's not going to just casually be like big pussy. So it was.
Do you think he sat there and thought about it for a while?
He tried to pretend he couldn't remember the name. He's like the big guy that has that name.
And so your sister said, oh, you mean big pussy?
That's exactly how it went. Yes.
Knowing them both, yeah, that sounds right. Okay. Skyrocket Smith.
We get the second Smith here. We went from phenomenal to skyrocket.
I'm gonna.
I don't think it's real. I think he's giggling a
Okay.
little too hard.
We can go bullshit.
I bullshit.
He's real.
Damn it. Really?
The same year, he spent time at first base for the Louisville Colonels. So Skyrocket Smith and Phenomenal Smith
On
were
the same
active at the
team?
same. No, I take that back. Phenomenal Smith was an Oriole/A.
Oh, okay.
But,
It's a fascinating year in baseball.
I sure was.
I really wish it were KERNALS, like
Yeah,
popcorn.
little-
That is the stupidest
Small
name.
units of baseball. That's what that would be representing.
Not even the one you want. You want popcorn. You don't
Yeah.
want the little kernels
No,
that
fuck
didn't
the
pop.
Colonels. And fuck the Colonel, too. I like Popeyes. Only one more, and then we can talk about. What are we talking about?
Father knows best.
Little Pussy.
I don't think so. Surely they wouldn't have gone for
Big
another
and little
one.
pussy.
I don't think they would do that. And it's not a baseball player. And they'll bring in their barrel-chested closer, Little Pussy.
Throws 105 miles per hour.
I like the idea of it being Little Pussy, and he throws like 200. And they just call him
Yeah,
that.
look, he's changing what it means to be pussy.
It's a Tim Lincecum case.
Yeah.
That little guy throwing hard. Okay.
What about Little Pussy, though? Did you guys decide he's fake?
I think so.
Let's go fake.
He's real. He's also in The Sopranos. He's a relative of Big
they
Pussy.
did. They
but
decided to double down on it.
They're not brothers, and they're both there from the start.
But it's in the same family. You got a big pussy. I guess, I don't know, you have a nephew that's a little obnoxious.
Do they
Call him
fit
Little
their
Pussy.
roles? Do they look like they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they do. Little Pussy's not really much of a character. He's just mainly mentioned, but, it did work. So that's been yet another startling edition of Bada Bing, Bada Hoom. Mob Hits, Base Hits, or Bullshits edition. Spencer, let's do the real podcast.
Mommy, look what I got! A magic set! A real genuine voodoo magic set! The instructions say this'll give me real magic power, honest. I just wave the wand and say some magic stuff, and I can change people into animals and make things disappear and all that. What do you want me to change you into, a cow?
You're just going about your business, beating your wrench that's too small under the sink, trying to fix the drip when your little Kathy girl,
bulldog of a daughter,
your little child comes in and says that to you.
There's more to it, though, because she's holding the magic kit, and she is, and I'm not joking, prodding her mother with it as her mom's working under the sink as if it's some sort of weapon.
But Mom doesn't react because this is her daughter. I'm sure this shit happens all the time. She just accepts Kathy jabbing her with a box of magic.
And she's also got like a little hat, Kathy does, right? She's got like some kind of little...
Oh, she puts it on.
It's a little turban thing that, because, magic used to be racist.
I have to say, this episode of Father Knows Best very quickly establishes itself as something that seems illegal. Several things about it. Which, between Kathy's turban that she puts on, between the words that come out of her mouth, which sound like, again, like racist gibberish nonsense, and then the episode's promotion of a vice that we no longer promote. But we'll get to that. Also, I checked on that house episode that was taken. I got to thinking about stuff that shouldn't be in TV shows anymore. We covered a house episode with a stupid
the shooter thing.
Hostage situation. It is back up on Peacock now.
Interesting.
After being taken down.
Well, America as a society, our values ebb and flow.
I wonder who was spearheading the initiative to get that back on.
Brandon Tartikoff.
Probably whoever played the bad guy. Probably wasn't Hugh Laurie. He was probably like, please take that off the internet. I wouldn't like to be affiliated with that episode.
Look at me, big beard. He has a big beard now.
And that's not how he talks in the show. In the show, he's like, I need another painkiller, Helen Hunt.
Nailed it.
So Margaret, and it's like we said, she's working on the sink with a wrench.
A woman doing man's
badly.
work?
And she tells Kathy if she's going to turn her into anything right now, she needs to turn her into a plumber.
Oh, fuck.
A plumber.
That accent comes right out.
I do
so
declare
thick.
I need a plumber. So, who does housework in just a full-ass dress?
Women
I'm sorry,
in the 50s.
not housework, I mean mechanical work, too.
I'm actually kind of surprised they even depict a woman doing that. And they
True.
do later kind of make it sound like she shouldn't, but I didn't even know that. I thought that was taboo.
I don't understand why not just call Mr. Fix-It. Get him over here.
Yeah.
He'll tell you a story about, I don't know, how to
Wartime-
better yourself and there's weird orphans in it, but
and
then
things that happen to, his people in Prussia.
and then he fixes it.
And on
And he doesn't
Christmas,
charge
too,
you.
Christmas Eve,
Mhm.
he's available. Mr. Fix-It, give him a call if you guys are listening to this. Tell him the Boob Tube Boys sent you.
Get 10% off.
So we talked, Kathy's got her questionable magician gear on. She's put that on while she's talking. She sprinkles some powder on Margaret. She reads the spell from the instructions. It concludes with telling Margaret, you should now be a rabbit. Margaret remains human.
And we've all been there. This is one of the rites of passage as a child. Try to turn your parent into an animal, doesn't work, you're discouraged.
Yep.
Kathy bemoans the state of children's toys today. They don't make toys like they used to.
Well, yeah, because they used to be handmade out of human hair. That was all the toys you
I
had.
found that confusing too because, sacraments were the only toy. There hadn't been toys, but for 5 or 6 years at this point, probably.
Right, kids were supposed to be labor at this age.
Yeah.
I have to think that might have been intended as the joke there. Maybe Kathy's like, oh, we just now created this industry and Kathy's joking about it.
I think the joke is Kathy's too young to
well,
know
of course,
what
that's
used
also
to be.
part of it.
Because shows in this era love that exact
Oh, yeah.
joke. Like a kid trying to think they're wise or whatever. They think it's the best joke.
Mhm. They also do this thing where Kathy keeps demanding Margaret look her in the eyes because that's the only way the magic trick will work.
Which that's how she gains control. So
Well, no, it's a big problem. In the wild, you are not supposed to look a Kathy in the eyes. They see it as an act of aggression and will attack.
And also being face-to-face with it. You know how we talked about in our last episode, Kit versus Car squaring off, and how that's a bad idea because of Car's ultimate strength. Same deal, the density of a Kathy head, you don't want to accidentally catch like even friendly fire should she lean forward and headbutt you.
Right. She's like the Juggernaut from X-Men.
Thank you.
While Kathy is doing all this bemoaning about the plight of the children's toy industry and how much worse they've gotten in her life over the course of all 5 years of it, we notice that a book of matches is moving, or I think it's matches, on the counter all on its own. Kathy sees it as she waves the wand and seems to get this idea in her head. Oh, this wand actually does work. It may not have turned my mom, the plumber, into a rabbit, but it did move the matches. So something's happening here.
This is a much more effective comedic moment when we see it like 100 years later in The Office, whenever Jim and Pam pull the fake
umbrella stand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What does Dwight say to that? Where all quiet and hushed.
It's so good.
There's something he reads
We
in that
covered that
that's perfect.
episode,
Yeah.
too.
I remember Dwight's response being just 10 of 10.
Unlike in this Father Knows Best episode where it's
Oh, they
kind
don't
of just,
do anything with
No,
that.
the audience laughs, but that's much like with Everybody Loves Raymond or something. That's no barometer.
We do turn the camera from the other angle. That's just Bud. Just Bud doing Bud shit.
Okay, but what is Bud doing? Because the matches move. He's not touching them.
He seemed to have a string attached to it.
So
How did
in
he do that?
It's my understanding that the 1950s string was one of the main sources of entertainment.
It
So
was.
he must have lassoed the matchbox with his string. So we find out later that Bud feels he needs to extract these matches from the kitchen on the sly. I don't think he would have had to be this on the sly about it.
No, surely you can make something up that you need a match for.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
It's
going to
not
go out
that
and burn
big.
the garbage.
She would have been thrilled.
Exactly. Oh, you're doing your chore, Bud.
She spent a whole episode that we covered originally in our first run just lecturing Bud about burning the trash the whole time. That was most
In
of it.
between ruining a minority's business.
Father knows best.
Robert Young!
Bud really just wants the matches in secret because he and this unimportant character named Joe that they just forced in this episode to get
It's
someone
just
else
a
in there.
little kid that looks like every other fucking little kid in the 1950s.
At least they all have distinct names, though. Jim, Joe, Bud.
Joe and Bud are doing bad things, sort of, for 50s boys, and they need the matches for that. We get a sense of what little scheme they're cooking up.
They're going to play the trombone together.
They are going to do that. There's Joe's trombone case is here. Should I try to make a trombone
Yes,
since I
let's
did
hear
such a good saxophone? Let's see. How,
The saxophone was.
well, that's the same thing.
Right.
That's how these
That's
go.
okay.
I think these more go like.
That's exactly right.
Because you pull the
Yeah.
thing and you go.
Because when I was thinking of it in my head, I was thinking of like one of those noises.
What's a tuba's? That's
Yeah.
a tuba, right?
Yeah, like it's really just kind of farting along.
Plodding.
Yeah, it kind of helps. I think the drum, the bass drum or something, it's mostly supposed to provide some foundational support. It doesn't do a whole lot else.
You can feel it.
You can't do like a melody with a tuba, I don't think.
Mm.
But the trombone maybe sits more in the middle. I don't know. I was a woodwind person, so I'm not really familiar with brass instruments.
I'll tell you what. Let's hear an oboe.
It's so ugly. It sounds
They
like
got a lot of knobs.
it sounds like somebody's scraping a knife on glass a little bit with an oboe. It's like
So it's up there though.
yeah, it's higher.
I don't know
It's
shit about
It's more
oboes.
in the flute range, but it's uglier. It's like an ugly flute.
Huh.
I don't know. We only have like 2 oboe players, so I'm not
They're
really.
expensive, and they're new. I watched a documentary on the
They're
oboe
new.
once. Like of all the instruments in the what are those called, classical groups?
Sure.
The oboe is one of the newest ones. It was created in
I
like
think
Italy.
they're called lame instruments. I'm not sure.
So this trombone case, we've determined what it sounds like and what a tuba sounds like and what an oboe sounds like. We know all about that. They're not actually using a trombone for musical purposes.
Hey, Van, what's a didgeridoo sound like?
Oh, you even did the little reverberating
Yeah.
thing.
Well, you got to really blow on that tube.
Thought I was catching you unawares. No, I was not. You were prepared for that.
I could see the koala when you made that sound.
Have you ever heard
Heard
a
it.
koala?
No.
They sound horrible. They just yell. There was this YouTube video, you can find it, and it's this koala fell out of a tree because they're dumb as shit. They have like acorn brains,
And STDs.
lots of chlamydia, and it's just screaming. It's just sitting there going like, "Ah!" And that's it for like 5 minutes. It's this pissed off koala. The guy puts it on the tree to hopefully shut it up and it doesn't work.
Speaking of marsupials, I often call my cat Wombat. I just call them that.
Because they're dense little things.
And I knew there must be a reason, but I hadn't looked at one in a while, and I Googled them. Yeah. I call them that for a reason.
Have you ever seen the one long teat inside of a kangaroo's pouch? It's kind of gross.
Oh, I've never looked in there.
You wouldn't climb inside one of them? You know, comes up to you, hop right in.
I'm actually kind of afraid of kangaroos.
They're big.
They're mean, too.
They're all muscly.
I think they're 7 feet
Good at
tall.
boxing.
Yeah, they do fight.
They kind of free roam at the Kansas City Zoo. They're just kind of walking around.
Yeah,
and
I
stuff.
want to check that out.
I saw a video once, a kangaroo that got too close to a guy's dog, and he was afraid for his dog, so he went up and he squared up with the kangaroo, and he popped it in the face.
And then people got mad at him. Like, how dare you hit it? It's like, fuck you. Like, I'm an animal advocate, but he could
I don't
not.
think he felt it. The kangaroo was just kind of like, I'm going to leave now. He didn't hurt him. He was just kind of surprised and left. So it worked.
Kangaroos are typically hunted by dingoes. And so their strategy to fight back, I swear I've said this exact thing on this podcast, is they will lead the dingoes into a pool of water where the kangaroo is tall enough to be above it. The dingo isn't. And then the kangaroos will drown them. They will hold them under the water.
We have talked about this. I've got an Australian fact. What do you call a cocktail in Australia? Like a mixed drink.
I don't know.
Spider.
I know, it's a spider.
What do you call a horse?
Brumby.
Thank you.
Look at that spider Brumby.
Ew. You can ride around on it.
Oh, it's the Prime Minister's favourite spider, Brumby.
8-legged horse, very fast.
Oh, did you catch the Casketeers last night?
Now we're switching. Casketeers. Send you a text about it.
You'd be upsetting both the New Zealand culture and Australian deeply at this point.
This is horrendous.
There's none of those things in the trombone case, by the way. Everything we just mentioned, none of that comes into play in this episode.
No
believe it or not.
marsupials.
No, it's just a bunch of fancy cigars that Joe stole from his dad's den, his dad's 50s den.
These are real Cubans.
Real Havana Cuban cigars, which hard to come by.
Would you guys, none of us smoke cigars.
Never have.
I have smoked like 2 cigars in my life. If you were presented with a Cuban cigar, like some very expensive, like they're big in media throughout our lives, would you try it?
Absolutely.
I would
I've never tried a cigar. I would give it a shot.
I think I would throw up from it, but I would try it.
So why do they say that cigars are actually less harmful to you than cigarettes? Why do they say that?
They have less additives.
Yeah, I believe it's all that. Like, I mean, if you smoke enough of them, obviously.
Sure.
But I think there's less of the like carcinogens and stuff that's put in there.
Yeah, I guess you can't have like 20 cigars a day like you do cigarettes.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. I think you would just immediately power down.
We're going to find out what happens when you have too many cigars in this very episode, actually. So Joe has stashed these cigars in the trombone case. What do we think about the presentation of stashing the cigars in there? I thought it was pretty clever. That's like the only thing about their plan that I was like, okay.
I really, really liked it. It reminds me of a time when I got a used guitar from someone that we all know, Brian Smith, a very nice young man.
Did he have cigars in that?
Well, underneath the guitar, there's a compartment in the case.
Pornography.
And there was a bag of white powder in it. And I was like, what is this? And it turned out to be some sort of like resin, like some sort of like wood. Like I looked up what it was and it was like from whoever he got it from. And it was from somebody that played like some other instrument or something.
Oh, sure. Because like bowed instruments,
you thought
resin.
he had a coke habit.
Briefly, I was like, whoa, big time secret reveal. And then also briefly, I was like, I'm going to have an interesting weekend.
Nothing would surprise me more in this world than finding out Brian Smith had a coke habit.
That'd be like top 5.
That would never happen.
That'd be like top 5 things that I'd be like, well, I didn't call that one.
I guess I need to rethink some things.
So Joe and Bud got a plan. What are they going to do with all these cigars? They're going to smoke the shit out of them.
I think that's real keen.
So the boys plod away outside while Kathy wanders over with the wand she's now pretty sure is even better than advertised. Bud tells her, get the fuck out of here, Shrimp. I hate you. Kathy threatens.
That's not far off. Bud is so fucking
I'm paraphrasing,
mean.
but yes, he pulls kind of a Matthew Perry a little bit in Friends when he tells Phoebe to go, or Monica to go to bed, and then she should be depressed and die.
And
it's like
Kathy,
that.
It should be mentioned, is dumping salt around her in the yard and repeating the same incantation as if this is hereditary or something.
She's like willy-nilly magicking.
What if this had turned into something truly horrifying?
Well,
like she summons a demon.
She does seem like she wants to. She threatens immediately, like, I can turn you into whatever I want. I'm magic now. I can do this.
This is our, what is this, our 15th or 16th time we've covered Father Knows Best?
Somewhere on there.
One of the things I've noticed right away, and this actually I think is more of a staple of older shows, is sibling relationships are portrayed as very antagonistic.
Vicious.
Like mean.
Yeah.
Angry and mean.
I like to think that we at this point in the 1950s America, we hadn't come that far from not all the siblings are going to make it to adulthood.
Yeah.
So
Sure,
there's got to
sure.
be, you got to kind of
Competition.
scrap and claw and prove that you deserve to be one who does.
Cull a few from the pack.
But this is one of those things that I think changes pretty drastically down the line in media when they realize that most siblings at least want to like one another.
And not loathe one another
Yeah,
like Bud does.
they play this off like it's the cutest thing. Our kids fucking hate each other, and
Yeah.
it's hilarious.
And then Betty does the same
Yeah.
thing. She comes in and is snotty as fuck.
They all hate one another individually.
Well, and I noticed this a lot, the tone of the early Simpsons episodes, how it's comical that Homer chokes Bart to the
Oh,
point
yeah.
where he almost kills him.
Which 100% is an intentional throwback to like this kind of thing.
It's the exact same concept. Yeah, like there's a little bit of murder in every family. It's kind of what we try to imply here.
You know, it's also kind of the Simpsons' entire joke behind Itchy and Scratchy of this like horrible thing that's presented as children's like family-friendly entertainment.
And we mentioned the 4 types of eyes, right? Bud's got the hillbilly eyes, the ones that are too close together.
Maybe that's why I don't like him.
Could be.
Bud's the kind of kid you look at him and goes, "This kid drunk?" And he's not. But you wonder.
Why is he wobbling?
So Bud and Joe argue who gets to smoke first, not for the reason you think though, but clearly because they don't want to and are just doing this to be cool.
Or know how.
Yeah, we have to realize that this tells us these are good kids. They don't do horrible things like
That
this.
way, anyone who is a do-gooder watching in the 50s, which is a lot of the audience, probably won't think that Bud and Joe are actually assholes. They're
Yes.
like, oh, those little, they don't know what they're getting into. Also, though, probably most people who watched the show at that time would have been totally fine with cigar
Yeah,
smoking,
and
too.
the way this episode plays out surprised me a bit.
Oh, absolutely.
And then I got to thinking about it, and I think that's why smoking was allowed to be in the show. I think it was considered so commonplace.
Of course your son's going to try it.
I think if you had an episode today where a 15-year-old was caught smoking,
Oh, shit.
it would be treated way differently. Like, and for good reason, I get it. But when I first moved to Philadelphia, I was still smoking cigarettes, and I would go out to do that on my work break. And I worked with a lot of people younger than me, and they'd be like, "That is fucking gross."
Oh, yeah. Like the younger generations, one of the things they seem to have gotten right is that nobody smokes anymore.
Yeah.
It's wild.
And I will never not think it's cool. It's to me, like, I'm not going to do it again. Coolest fucking thing you could ever do. Give me a leather jacket and some cigarettes.
I love any movie scene that incorporates smoking well. It just works. It's always like, yeah, that looks awesome.
It just makes me feel like a detective even when I see it.
Meanwhile, Kathy's back at trying some magic with her wand. Spoiler, she's going to do that for a while until she starts thinking that she's murdering people. This time she's found what looks like, I can't tell if this is actually a family pet or just a neighborhood stray, but either way,
My second favorite character.
it's an adorable little kitten, clearly a very little cat.
Young kitten.
And a very
Little baby.
malleable actor, this kitten.
And very cute. Like it finally rolls over and purrs. And
She tries to get the kitty to turn into a rabbit, I think is what it is. She doesn't have any success. Jim comes home in what appears to be the family hearse when he pulls into this giant black car with just bodies all over the back seat.
And he honks, by the way. Does he always honk to
I don't remember.
announce his arrival? I think he does.
I think honking cars used to be a big source of entertainment for people.
I think he's proud of it too because he talks to Kathy for like 30 minutes and just
In the
stays
car.
in the car. He doesn't get out.
You know what? When
Robert Young!
when Aunt Neva showed up, he honked a bunch in that episode too. So I do think it's, oh, I'm home, I better honk a bunch. And you're right, Brian, it's the new technology. Everybody's fascinated with new technology. Back then, a horn was new
You probably
technology.
wanted to hear what everybody sounded like. Like maybe Bob's is different.
Don't they do something with that Auga and the green truck and the Waltons too?
Yes.
Oh,
They-
yeah.
It's a big deal. Yeah,
And
you
when
have
does
to
that
honk.
take place? Like the year 5?
The 30s, sometime in the Great Depression.
The other thing I would like to say about Jim, who's ostensibly the main character of Father Knows Best, but he isn't, I would argue that he gets the least screen time in like every episode we've covered.
That's true.
He only shows up and is always cheerful and above it all.
He's just smiling.
He's
the
a
whole
nice
time.
guy, but he also like is always kind of like talking to people with a level of insincerity.
Oh, yeah, it's so
like kind of
smug,
like, "You're
too."
stupid. I know the real level of what's going on."
He really does act like he's on a different plane from everyone else.
And this is the thing that just aggravates me kind of societally. about like the 50s when I think about him, like a guy who thinks he's master of his domain for real. That is, I think, still, like, we understand to make fun of that in TV shows now to a certain degree. Like, at least in King of Queens, we know Kevin James is a doofus. We're supposed to acknowledge that. And honestly, Jim doesn't ever, like, Margaret's the one fixing the sink. The doctor comes in and helps solve a problem. Like, everything that happens has nothing to do with Jim. He's just there.
In this case, he just sits there in the hearse and talks to Kathy for a while and then just go like, yeah, good job. Way to do your magic, Kathy. Doesn't offer anything to her. Doesn't really do much besides just listen cheerfully. By the time Kathy turns around back to the cat, she just hears a bird. That's all we hear now. So she thinks, oh, okay, I've turned Fluffy into a bird.
Yeah, it's on that water dish Fluffy was at. And it's like, wow, I can do magic.
No other explanation I can think of.
Well, it's not. She was going for the rabbit, but it's a bird. So it's kind of like it didn't work, but it did in this sense.
She did also say at one point, I don't care, just turn into a cute little bird or whatever you want.
She says turn into whatever you want when she gets frustrated. So she thinks, oh, when I said that.
It was just that he didn't want to be a rabbit.
Yeah.
Hey, Spencer, it's break time.
Back with Bud and Joe, they've been smoking up a storm. They're both looking worse for the wear. They won't admit it. Joe says, hey, Bud, like, we should take a break. And Bud says, no, I love this.
It.
This is
Great.
the best fun I've ever had. Inside the Anderson house, Margaret tells Jem about her big news for the day. While he was working, she was dealing with the drip under the kitchen sink. Margaret's done the best she can, but hey, now that Jem's home, let's get the job done right.
When Jim looks over and goes, I see your problem, dear. Your wrench is too small. Jim, you picked up a crescent wrench. They adjust. It's perfect for the job.
I gotta say, you guys, Jim looks old as hell.
He does.
We've talked about it before, but he just looks like he's 70.
His suit doesn't fit either. It's too big.
Yeah.
He looks kind of gangly in it.
Kathy takes this time to burst inside to let everyone know about her cat to bird change and mentions she can't get the cat bird to come out of the tree.
That was a weird Nickelodeon show, wasn't it? Cat bird. Cat bird.
You gotta hope the top half is the bird so it can fly.
Oh, and so has cat poop.
Yeah. It shits in a box.
Kathy wants to lure the cat bird out of the tree, doesn't know what food to use, so decides,
What's she do, Spencer?
well, she's got a great idea. She's going to get a breaded pork chop, man.
That's just out in the fridge?
Yep.
It's not in Tupperware or plastic wrapper. It's just sitting in the fridge.
Mm-hmm. Also, I do enjoy the 50s-ness of, like, there's probably rows of breaded foods prepared to be
All kinds of
laboriously
meat.
cooked for, like, 3 hours by this poor woman who's not allowed to have an interior life.
Because all she does is cook meat for Jim, who eats meat, and that's it.
Meanwhile, as far as we know from the 4 episodes we've seen, we have to assume Jim's at work trying to organize banquets for an old man.
By the way, Kathy's plan on this, guys, the breaded pork chop, this is because the bird will eat the breaded exterior first, and then by the time the bird gets through the bread and is eating the meat, Kathy's just going to turn it back to the cat by that point. So it's best for both animals.
It's pretty clever. You know, if a little girl actually came up with this, I'd be like, that's cute.
You'd be like Jim and Margaret then, because they're both just thrilled that Kathy thought of that.
Mhm.
Like, oh my God, her daughter, she has this crazy imagination.
I wish that I had not watched any of the episode and I had just turned it on in this next scene when Kathy is yelling and waving a pork chop at a tree.
That's the time for us to introduce Betty to this episode, where she comes home and inquires what's going on. Kathy says, well, can't you see I'm trying to get the cat down from the tree? It's a bird. So Betty says, that's not a cat. You're having a psychotic break. Kathy, we need to go inside. Kathy says, nah, Betty, I'm just going to have to turn you into something too. Because at this point, Kathy's just losing it and making threats to everyone.
Much like how the two hobos got their taste of power, and in particular, Tony, who really went mad with power. Kathy now has this power more than her bulldozer power and is waving it in everyone's face, threatening her siblings.
You can tell because she thinks it works, she's gained confidence. She says something in here that is metal as shit. It's like, woe be to my enemies or something.
I wrote down that it's starting to look like Kathy is becoming a bit of a tyrant with her magic.
Kathy's that exact kind of person, like an Elon Musk, where don't let him have it. Like, it's just going to be annoying for everybody.
Inside, Jim, as it turns out, despite his confidence, is having no luck with the sink. He's actually made it worse. He does tell Margaret it was probably her fault, and now he's going to have to get a plumber to unfuck her shit. And then Bud returns from his cigar marathon ready to puke just all over the place. And that's when Margaret says, like, Bud, what's wrong with you? What have you been up to?
I mean, aside from everything that's wrong with you.
Jim takes this time to aggressively offer a banana split to Bud. And
He calls it a snack?
Well, this family has some sort of weird ice cream fetish. We've also...
Yeah, cranking
they
the
crank it
machine.
themselves. They want to make sure it goes to use.
It also speaks to a real thing from people of this generation where they just don't believe in anything but food. Like, eat, it'll fix cancer. Like, they did, eat more, eat.
I especially like that it's a banana split, like the most indulgent thing you can even think of. And he's just like, here, have a banana split. You'll feel better.
Yeah, the
Bud.
nutrients. They'll fix what wrongs you. Just here, do that and no cigars, but here, have these 5 cigarettes after your banana split. You'll feel better in a day.
Eat the heaviest food imaginable. You'll feel great.
Here, I'm going to dump some chicken parmesan on top of your ice cream.
Bud runs off as quick as he can because this sounds disgusting to him. Jim's concerned. Like by now, he's finally getting something actually is wrong with Bud.
I have to really quick add that I really empathize with Bud here. In our younger years, sometimes drinking would be tough. And in our friend group, everyone would be like, I just need to eat some breakfast to soak this up. And I would be the guy running away like, don't talk about food right now. I never could eat after a drinking night.
I'm not really sure I get that concept either. There's some foods that people are like, oh, it's hangover food. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, that's not really a thing.
And I'm like, no, hangover food means you can't eat for a day.
The next day, I do like a cheeseburger is all I
I don't
want.
know. It doesn't do anything for me. The only thing that ever worked for me was just the drinking more. Hair of the dog. It'll go away then. I mean, you're gonna just kick the can down the road and feel bad the next day instead.
The only thing that ever worked for me, big fat banana split.
Oh yeah, hangover food.
Fixes everything. I broke my toe, banana split.
What about that old classic rock song, Hair of the Dog? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It's so, now you're messing with a son of a bitch. And that's all it is.
It's so funny you
What
bring
a
up
wild-ass song.
You bring up that Hair of the Dog song because at the same time, based on what we were talking about, I was thinking about the Banana Splits group.
Oh, yeah, the like kids thing?
Yeah, that did songs.
Huh. Not Bananas in Pajamas.
No,
They come down the stairs.
which is a whole other deal. And what about the big purple people eater, flying purple people
He's
eater?
got a one-eyed, one-horn, flying purple people eater. Because it was, the 40s, remember that song
Yeah.
came out? And every man talked like that, and that was it. No
Well,
other voices.
that's just before this. So that was
Yeah.
probably considered one of the 2 or 3 better songs at that time.
Well, there were only 7 or 8.
I think we're setting a BTB record for diversions this episode, and I'm proud of us.
There's not much else we can do. We're like already halfway through
Well,
this
the episode itself is nothing.
There's not much else. And like I said, we're almost kind of done. There's only 2 more developments that we even can talk about.
But we could get into Bud's character development.
Is there some? This is when Jim is actually worried because Bud, this is a growing boy is always hungry. Why is he not hungry? He must be dying. It's a big deal. And Jim goes upstairs to be like, Bud, are you sure that you don't want to eat a banana split?
1 minute ago, you said no. Let me lean over you, just 6 inches from your face.
This is the take charge, worried father. I'm going to fix it because I'm an assertive male sort of thing.
And dads were very concerned about their kids in the 50s.
And by the way, his idea of I'm going to fix it is, I guess I'll call the doctor to do all the work. Like, he doesn't do anything, like Brian said.
No, and he's just called the plumber for the sink.
It's very weird to see like a TV show and like a house call be a thing, not a joke or anything. Because we need to do a house call. Call the doc.
Who just comes over.
Yeah.
Immediately, too.
Imagine that. Like I keep thinking about like, I really should do a physical at some point. I'll just call him to come over here and do it.
Do you think that'd make it any easier if they would
No.
come to you?
No, but like the idea of a fucking doctor being like, yeah, sure.
They would have like a little hat, right? And the little
Yeah.
bag.
The suction cup.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
thing that we don't know what is. We've talked about it before. We think it's fake.
And the bag with the medical cross on it.
Mm-hmm. Want one real bad.
Well, we like bags around here.
We're a bunch of horny little box boys.
I would not go that far. So while Jim and Bud are upstairs talking about how Bud feels totally fine, just doesn't want to be in a split, downstairs, Margaret and Betty are kind of brandishing some flatware, like doing the women's work that they are supposed to be doing. Kathy races in crying because Fluffy the catbird flew away, and now it's too late to change her back into a cat. She's stuck in bird form forever. Jim returns from checking on Bud to say, oh, he's still sick, he won't eat. Bud claims that he can see spots. Apparently, these are some of his symptoms. Bud can see spots in front of his head and also behind him.
Audience loved that. I don't know why.
And then Jim adds, his eyes are red, his face is green, is another thing that's going on with Bud.
Now, the show's in black and white, so my thought was we don't know in the 50s were people green?
That's true. You know, I heard Charlie Chaplin was green.
Kermit sang famously that it ain't easy being green.
And that little frog, what was its name? You know, the little one?
Oh, yeah, he shows up sometimes.
Like Terrence or something.
Miss Piggy.
So Kathy overhears this part about the red eyes, green face, and thinks, oh shit, that curse when he said a whole bunch of mean things to me and I told him that I hated him and was going to curse him, it worked. And now Bud is sick. She starts to cry, thinking, well, she's a murderer now. She's a little magic-wielding murderer.
First kill is always the hardest.
Margaret tries to comfort her, but it's not going to work. Kathy says there's just too much evidence. The catbird thing, the Bud thing, and also Betty when she came home. Kathy told her she hoped she got hit in the head and a paper hit her in the head, coincidentally. So Kathy's pretty sure that she's doing all this.
That one also is especially I felt like the writing was bad. Like, come on, guys, come up with something a little more plausible than getting hit in the head with a news.
It wasn't even enough for me to put in the notes that it happened.
Yeah,
so,
I'd forgotten about
work.
it until you said it. Like, it's just so, the only reason they do it is so that every member of the family has a hex put on them by Kathy so she can confirm her own magic bias.
And this is after school or whatever, by the way. This is later in the day. Why are you just getting the paper then?
Well, look, there's only one paperboy for the whole town. I do love that we're seeing paperboys. We're seeing doctors doing house calls. Just, these are the pleasures of Father Knows Best.
Absolutely.
Seeing a world that is dead.
So Jim has an idea here. As is always the case in these shows, he's the one with the solution. He says, look, Kathy, you didn't kill Bud. You didn't put a curse on anyone. Joe was here. You said this horrible thing to him too. I'm sure Joe's fine. We'll just give him a call. He'll be fine. And then you'll know that you didn't do any of this.
No, that logic is also faulty because if Bud's sick and Joe was hanging out with him, he could just be sick too. Or sick.
Well, the whole family gathers around. They gather around ye old telephone. They check in on Joe. And we get one of those calls that Van did the last time where
I almost did it again.
They dial it. And then Jim immediately, 1 second later, says, oh no, Joe's sick and the family doesn't know why.
He's also told me his whole childhood story.
Just instantly. Mrs. Phillips just rapidly spit that out, I guess, when he called. So this just confirms Kathy for sure and she's cursed everyone. Camera zooms in on distraught Kathy, and then they awkwardly cut that scene. Because we have to now show someone else in the family taking their turn. Margaret's tried. Jim's tried. We got to get some Betty doing it. And this is kind of falling into what Van was saying about not liking Betty is Betty's got kind of a questionable approach into how she tries to absolve Kathy of the problem by being like, you're a stupid little kid. There's no way you did anything with magic. It wouldn't work. You wouldn't be able to.
And of course she's correct. But Betty has some of Jim's air of superiority that she puts on. And I think that's what is kind of annoying about her.
It's funny though, because this is a situation where Betty's actually behaving in such a way that even Jim calls her out and he's like, Betty, you're being kind of a bitch.
Chill out.
What are you doing to Kathy in there?
Well, and remember in the Mr. Fix-It episode when Kathy's throwing a fit because she said something mean about Aunt Neva.
Yeah.
Betty puts her hand over her mouth and pushes her into the bed. She is too mean. Everyone is too mean with one another.
I think she knows she can't physically hurt Kathy, so it's it's okay.
It's like how you can cattle prod a cow because they don't really
feel that. Or like how vampire bats, they're not really vampiric, but they do bite open the skin of cattle and then drink the blood.
Ugh.
Cattle don't even feel it. They're just like, oh, I'm a big cow. Who knows? Much like Kathy's like, I'm a big magician.
We know that the whole family is suffering from something. Every character is having problems. No one has a solution. Not yet, but Margaret does. She's decided, she's figured it out. This is what's going to fix Bud. Feed him. She's going to make...
Wait. Haven't we crossed this bridge before?
Well, no, we didn't. We did a banana split. She's going to do
just
hot...
a snack.
She's going to do hot chicken broth instead.
And also, none of these people are overweight. Like, if you're just
skinny,
casually eating ice cream sundaes, I don't think you'd be thin.
Not surprisingly, Bud angrily rolls away and refuses to eat the hot broth that she tries to bring him. Doesn't work. Everyone's still sick.
Okay, so the words kitten and chicken are said in this episode. And every character that says them says it the same 50s mid-Atlantic way. Chicken, kitten. Like they cut the E, the penultimate E, before the end of the word. So it just makes it sound like almost like a modern business spelling, like K-I-T-T-N.
Yeah, kitten.
Or C-H-I-C-K-N. Actually, I think Chick-fil-A does that, so adds up.
Chick-fil-A is launching their own streaming service. Like they're going to be creating content.
I think church services are already on YouTube and stuff.
Maybe they can merge with PureFlix and create some sort of weird
Well, it's supposed to be family friendly, and they're going to be doing like reality TV content and crap like that. I just read this.
Wow.
No, this is real. Because even though everything else is down, like fast food's doing well because when the pandemic hit, they fired everybody.
Yes.
And then never rehired everyone back.
This was
and just said, well, nobody wants to work anymore.
I worked in fast food when the pandemic hit, and I had to hear this as I was forced to physically lay people off in the position I'm in. I had to hear people openly saying to me, like, nobody wants to work. And it's like, I don't think you understand the situation.
Meanwhile, every corporation is making more money than they ever have.
And everyone who said that to me is, of course, like retired.
Oh, yeah.
Like sitting on their pile of cash like, this country's gone to shit.
I did my 38 hours a week and bought my 4 houses, and now I'm mad kids don't want to work no more.
I haven't looked into it, but I assume it all works the same way, and it's not changed. This has been our episode's edition of Everyone Rants About America.
Get me a banana split.
It sounds good, actually.
I'm with Bud on that.
I like ice cream. I'm okay with bananas. I don't want them together.
You want some hot chicken broth?
I'd take that over a banana split right now.
I love a good broth with a podcast. I like to sit down
nice
and just
consomme.
spoon that in there, let it dribble down my chin as I talk
salty.
about Father Knows Best.
I like to kind of just wipe it on my face. Like Neil Breen and his coffee.
It's good for your
pores? Exfoliation?
Sure.
Elsewhere in the Anderson house, Kathy's still crying in her room and does for the rest of the episode. She begins to gather a few of her things. We don't know right away what she's doing here, but she's got a baseball mitt that is very 50s. Looks like a Icebox Jones could use that mitt. I don't remember his name.
Icebox Chamberlain.
Icebox Chamberlain, okay.
And it is a mitt. This is not a baseball glove. This is a baseball mitt.
I don't think you can get that anymore. It's so 50s. A piggy bank, which also you wouldn't probably see anymore, and a last-second inspiration, some flowers that she had in a vase in her room. She takes all of this and heads to Bud's room, where he is still comatose in his bed. She stares over him sadly, decides to leave the flowers on his chest, and I guess now we learn that she's just giving him stuff as his goodbye because she's accepted he's going to die and she's mourning him.
Morbid.
She offers the piggy bank next and says, well, if you hurry, you can still buy something before you die. And Bud's not really interested. He's kind of not feeling well enough to buy anything before he dies. The mitt comes last, and she says, this is yours anyway, which is kind of funny.
No, I did think that was funny. It's because Kathy, again, she has stolen this. She is a little monster, and that's what makes her great.
Giving it back before he dies, I guess, will absolve her of the guilt.
She's making amends.
None of this does seem to cheer up Bud, especially when Kathy does try to offer a banana split for his last meal. They've really thrown that banana split in there a lot. Back in her room, Kathy is at her breaking point. She sweeps everything off her bed.
Violently.
Emotionally. You know what it reminded me of? Is that Scrubs episode where Dr. Cox kills all those patients and he just starts destroying, just trashes the room.
Well, that seems more of a reason to do that.
Well, Kathy's killed her whole family. So she's thinking along those lines. She sweeps
everything. Did he mean to kill all those patients?
Oh, no. No, it's not the episode where Dr. Cox is a serial killer.
Wait, that's the three-namer guy that was in the Steven Skull movie, right? That one? Listen, Sally, this is the only bit I can do.
That's
John C. McGinley, who I almost just said John C. Reilly, but I didn't.
Same thing.
You got pretty much the entire character down. He mixes some patients up and they all get the wrong goodness and they die.
That's a problem.
He smashes shit in the room, and Kathy kind of channels this a little bit, except she's just clearing off her bed so she can pray. She just wants to pray to God and says...
Anger pray.
She says, I've had enough of this mystical, unprovable magic shit.
I've killed my whole family. Please don't kill Bud. Fix it. And then a really courageous act of braveness for a 5-year-old girl or whatever she is, says, and if you can't fix Bud, I'll go instead.
But maybe not.
And then says, wait a second, but it's too late. Bud's already come in the room as she's starting to try to walk her prayer back. And he says, hey, I'm feeling a lot better, Kathy. And Kathy thinks, shit, it's in me now. I've got what he had. Well, I'm not long for this world. And now Kathy acts like instead of Bud's time just about being up, it's her time. So she has one last request for Bud to keep in mind in the event she dies shortly, which she will, which is if a bird comes scratching at the window, let it in because that's her kitten Fluffy, which I did like because Bud is very confused and would be.
Should probably rename it Feathery. No one calls their birds feathery.
No.
They should.
Or like, what's that texture? You know, it has like, I don't know what the adjective you'd use. Kind of like fluffy describes fur.
I do think a bird can be fluffy too. You don't have to
They
have
fluff
fur to
up
be
a bit.
fluffy.
It's particularly like if they're trying to scare away a snake or something, and then they poof up.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fluffy bird.
That's when I get my
So I think we
fluffiest.
agree we can just leave the bird named Fluffy then.
Fair enough.
Adjourned.
As she concludes by asking for a banana split because they wanted to go to that well another time.
Mm-hmm. A fat banana. She specifically asked for a fat one.
Well, she needs some calories. She burns a lot, destroying whatever it is she walks past. She needs to refill it.
And this kind of cements that really all this banana split talk is just Kathy wants one.
Bud agrees to do this just because he's relieved to be feeling better, I think, and is more confused than anything else. Down in the kitchen, Jim is going to town grating a whole bunch of cheese and remarking how this day has been weird and maybe there really is some voodoo going on. Betty interrupts to ask Jim, hey, can you go look for the trombone in the backyard? And Jim just looks at her like she's crazy and says, I guess, why would I do that? Betty says, Joe's mother's just called. He let us know Joe lost his trombone, thinks it's in the backyard here, and I think it's going to rain, so just this whole long thing about how the trombone's in the backyard and we don't want it to get rusty with the rain, so we need to go get the trombone.
Because Jim has to be, because he's the father, he's the patriarch, he has to be the one that finds the cigars and the trombone. But it's pretty funny that Betty, also basically an adult's like, Joe's mom just called, will you go out and look for the trombone? Like, just go fucking look for it, Betty. You're 2 feet away. Your yard is tiny.
I think she's old enough to take that on. She's like 20.
She's easily trombone aged.
And as Spencer was saying, the details are not necessary
No.
at all.
It's like they had a way longer conversation about this trombone than they did when she's like, my son's dying.
Yeah. It's very, you can tell that TV writing was in its infancy and that they were churning these fuckers out.
Turning them out like that cheese Jim's grating. Am I right?
And that ice cream from last time or a few times ago.
Speaking of which, they do an incredible handoff where Jim's like, okay, fine, I'll go to the trombone. Betty just takes the grater and starts in the
just
same
right
motion.
away.
Immediately.
Doesn't hesitate.
How much cheese do they need grated?
Look,
How much cheese can Kathy eat?
This family is like one organism, each one a different limb.
Well-oiled machine, the Andersons, just grating cheese and cranking ice cream all day.
We haven't even gotten to the part of the episode that I found most absolutely horrifying, but we're close to it.
All this chaos happening. Bud enters, announces he needs to make a banana split for Kathy. Betty's thinking, okay, well, you're clearly not well because you hate Kathy and you would never make her a banana split. Bud says, no, I mean, I'm fine, but Margaret, you need to go check. He doesn't call her Margaret, that's his mom. But he tells Margaret she'd better go check on Kathy because now Kathy seems a little bit off.
Now?
Phone rings again. Bud grabs it. This time it's Joe calling from under a sheet at his house. Joe warns Bud his mom has just called and told Bud's family to search for the trombone, which we know all too well. And he's worried that whoever finds it, they're going to find out about the cigars. We have a problem.
Just leave them there? Why not clean up?
They were near death.
Oh,
they were sick.
Okay.
Too sick to clean up the crime.
You would never, as a teen, leave behind so much egregious
No, you would
evidence.
die first.
Yeah.
Even if you were feeling sick, you'd be like, I can't let my dad catch me with that.
Maybe that's because we're all quite nefarious. Whereas obviously Bud, despite being your prankster, he's a good boy. He didn't think of that. I don't know. I'm trying to rationalize this, but no, I don't think you ever would leave that.
I think he's stupid. I think that's Bud's problem.
Or maybe onto
Could
something.
be yet another one of those father knows best oversights that we spotted a few of those over the course
Trademark father knows best oversight.
Robert Young.
I wish Jim said that like several times throughout the
He
episode.
just yells his name.
His real
But
name.
his real name.
Nodding and with that cheerful look on his face, Robert Young.
And Margaret just kind of horrified.
Sure, Jim.
Get the wrench, honey.
What a man.
Joe orders Bud to get out there first so that they don't get caught, offers him one last warning. Hey, I know it's been several hours, but don't forget that they can smell tobacco on your breath. So just be careful with that. Just as Bud tries to go outside and grab that trombone, the doctor arrives paying his house call, doing his thing we talked about. He's arrived to take a look at Bud, so Margaret whisks him out of the kitchen and leaves Jim to search for that trombone unimpeded. You know what this means is that Bud's secret is not going to be hidden much longer, guys. We're at what we would call the climactic point of a Father Knows Best episode.
That's what it is. What a climax.
So Bud frantically roots through the cabinets with Joe's advice ringing through his ears. It's very dramatic.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've got to find something, mints or whatever we have in the cabinet.
Something to mask that breath.
Margaret and Betty are looking at Bud like he's weird.
And content warning for me.
Since Bud can't find anything to mask his breath quick enough, he just happens to settle on a raw onion, a whole raw onion that Betty is holding in her hand, getting ready to prep. He takes a big old bite.
I'm grimacing, and it's not a put-on thing, because when I think about that, it is just...
I like onions, but no way.
It appeared to be a true chomp. It appeared that the Bud actor really did take a
He got a good audible, that chomp noise.
I now regret that I did not make a soundbite of that just that we could see your reaction, the visceral reaction to the...
Yeah, I'd have to just pretend it was an apple.
It would be my second favorite. Well, nothing can top probably my very favorite personally chosen soundbite in all these episodes of Clint Eastwood smashing grandma's teeth with the glass.
Oh, drink it, grandma.
Oh, rowdy.
Ow, rowdy. Outside, Jim is making progress in his search, complaining aloud about, this is actually there, as you guys know, he's complaining aloud about how trombones are worse than pianos.
He's leatherheading, too. No one's there but him.
He shines his 50s flashlight right over the cigars and inspects them suspiciously.
I bet that flashlight emitted weird poisons into the air somehow.
And it took 60 batteries and lasted 20 minutes.
5 minutes.
It's like Chernobyl after you use it.
It gets hot.
It's fortunate that Jim just immediately pointed it in the right spot because he was running out of battery on that thing.
I do love how he's outside for all of 1 second in his 10 by 10 yard complaining I hate trombones.
Pianos are way better than trombones.
If he'd left a piano in my yard, I'd find it way quicker. Also, factually incorrect that pianos are simpler to deal with. You have to hire a person to come to your house to make it be in tune.
Also, I do like the idea of Joe having brought one to the house. He wheeled a grand piano to the Andersons' house for the day.
And if you're going to be making music, what the fuck can you do with one trombone versus a piano?
And just knocking on the door. Mr. Anderson, where can I put my piano? Mr. Anderson, where may I put my piano? It's Hugo Weaving at the door.
Or Mr. Anderson.
Yes. Microphone descends.
Yeah.
Jim, by the way, his face, we get the full Father Knows Best experience with him here. When he gets the cigars, at first he's confused, and then he gets into dad mode where he's like, oh, I know what I'm gonna have a talking to that boy. He's in his element.
The show, however, does not take the time to compute the fact that it makes Jim look like a fucking moron by being confused even for one moment.
I have to say, Joe's reminder to Bud about how they're gonna smell like smoke would have come up already. They've been huffing cigars out there. They're going to smell like smoke.
We should add that while cigarette smoke is very strong, you could maybe get away with it.
Sure.
Change your shirt, brush your teeth.
But cigar smoke?
Yeah, it's on you for a week.
Somehow, Margaret and all of her momdom does not realize her son has been out there smoking cigars. I don't think so.
And you have to assume the window would be down. You could smell it out. And I say you have to assume because there's probably a pie cooling on the window.
Someone's aunt, not Neva, but someone's aunt came over and brought him a pie at some point. There's no question.
Aunt Neva, she only brings conflict.
Hope she's dead now.
They seemed to, Kathy and Neva resolved their differences.
Yeah,
we saw that.
They patched it up without resorting to any physical violence.
Inside, the doctor can't figure anything out with Bud. Margaret suggests that the doctor might as well look at Kathy too, since we don't know anything more about Bud, and Kathy's got whatever Bud had earlier. So.
Hell, just take care of all of us while you're here.
Well, that's it. Do you think you get charged per kid? What's the cost thing here?
I assume the whole thing's complimentary. This is 50s America, and you're a well-to-do, firmly middle-class family. It's on the house. We're just going to treat you.
Everybody's in the same little wealth club.
The problem is that I've been observing with this doctor is I don't know that he's very good.
I don't know that he's a doctor.
Could be. Yeah, that could be why the services are complimentary, because he's just kind of a guy.
We're always calling Dr. Conrad over, and he says he doesn't know.
Somehow Bud's little weak fake cough doesn't alert him to the fact that something doesn't seem, you're hiding something, Bud, and you smell like you ate an onion. None of it seems to matter to him. He's like, I don't know. He's fine, I guess, or he will be, or he isn't. And then Margaret says, let's go look at Kathy. Since you couldn't figure out one, let's figure out the other. This would seem to let Bud be free to where he can now go find the cigars and rescue his own plight from the making, which it's about to happen. But unfortunately, it's too late. Jim is already in the full Father Knows Best mode, his prime mode. He's armed with the trombone. He's inside. He's got that look in his eye.
Best stand-up material for the situation.
So I said that this confrontation that Jim is about ready to hurl at Bud, I think it's better than any of Columbo's gotcha moments.
Bud, I know you boys are quite resourceful, but I'd like to ask a question. When you use this as a holder, aren't you in danger of burning your ear?
One of the funnier things ever on TV, I guess.
Because it's the mouthpiece, right? For the trumpet or whatever. It's, is that a trumpet?
Trombone.
Oh, but what's a trumpet do? Yeah, it's like...
Yeah, it's more like, it's the sad
Peppy.
funeral song too, isn't it?
Kind of triumphant.
It can do it all. A trumpet can do it all. A trombone is
Well,
mostly...
jack of all trades instrument.
Yeah, I don't-
Trumpets do it for themselves these days, you know?
So yeah, it's bad news for Bud. I think Bud has been told at this point. Jim is like, you thought you could outsmart your father. You can't.
No one could. I'm Jim, white man of 50s, America.
This is where I think Jim in this scene is smug as fuck.
Yes.
He's super, super parent smug.
He's always so smug.
He is. This especially. The Jim tells Betty to call Mrs. Phillips. This is kind of his last burn here. Let her know they found the trombone. I guess we won't tell her what's wrong with Joe because nobody likes a squealer or something.
So this is how I tie it into The Sopranos. Nobody likes a rat.
Squealer.
Nobody
a rat,
likes
okay.
somebody squealing to the authorities.
This took me by surprise because I thought he would tell, but then also you think, oh, it's the 50s, everybody smokes. It's just like, oh, every kid does this
Yeah,
eventually.
they really play it off. And Spencer, I know you're going to get more into this as they fully resolve it, but like, I was very surprised that even right now, at the outset, Jim's not mad at all.
No, he's more...
Bud's upset that he's caught, but
He
he's not
seems more kind of...
amused.
Yeah, and like he thought, oh, Bud, you thought you could pull that one over?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
And it's actually the correct response, really, to just be like, well, kids are going to try this kind of thing. Like, I'm not going to be mad about it. He's sick already.
You
He
learned
knows-
your lesson.
Yeah. And if that's what you want, if you just want your kid to learn your lesson, well, he already did. So in this very weird way, this feels so much more progressive to me than like an 80s or 90s sitcom.
That's fair. I thought Jim seemed more kind of just like, whatever. It's kind of, you're dumb, you're stupid, but
Yeah.
I'm not mad. He could have done the thing where it's like, all right, now you're going to smoke every one of these
Yes.
cigars, or you're going to eat 10 banana splits or some kind of punishment, but he doesn't really seem to have one.
Some of those could so backfire on someone if they did them to me, which obviously I'm an adult and I'm like, you're going to eat every slice of that pizza. Okay.
Oh,
Yes, I have to. You're going to have to smoke that whole thing of weed. Well, you know what? I don't want to, but I'm gonna.
We have to note that Betty's in the background, by the way, this whole time, also looking smug. She's very happy that Bud got in trouble because, as we know, the kids just absolutely hate each other. And she's always happy to see Bud get in trouble for anything.
So, lest you think the two older siblings, because they're closer in age, liked each other, they do not.
Nope. Jim's peacocking, strutting around the house because he solved a case here and he's such a good father detective.
Oh, that's right. Just one more thing. That's how he would do it.
All the while, the doctor has looked at Kathy upstairs and is coming down with Margaret while Jim is doing his little parade around the house.
Yeah, I bet the doctor has a real realistic explanation for
Yeah.
what Kathy's going
It's
through.
real medical.
Guys, I'm still stuck on Robert Young as Columbo and how fundamentally shitty that would be. Like,
what a boring show that would be.
and like misunderstanding of the character entirely. Like that it's supposed to be like a scruffy like underdog versus the most boring middle-aged middle-class man.
So the doctor does have, as Van alluded to, some really sound medical opinions to share on Kathy, but Jim actually interrupts him when they meet at the stairs and says, well, doctor, I'm afraid that I have a little bit of a medical breakthrough of my own to share with you guys. Pulls out the cigars. The three of them have a great laugh at how stupid Bud is.
Kind of disappointing that the medical breakthrough wasn't like Jim pulls out his pocket like another hand or something.
I've cured polio. If only FDR were around now.
He's got like a little vial. He's like, I've been working in the lab at my insurance company.
Margaret actually gives us a little bit of an ominous tone about Kathy's situation where she says, oh, okay, well, at least we've solved Bud's case. I wish we had the same news about Kathy. The doctor will talk about it. And the doctor says, all right, well, what we've got here is we're up against a case of child's faith. Yep, makes a lot of sense.
One of the big ones. That's actually, we talked earlier about how a lot of kids in the past, you'd be worried about which ones you'd lose, so you'd have a bunch. Well, children's faith, big killer.
60%.
Yeah.
All went down.
Sometimes, typhoid or whatever, but sometimes children's faith.
This faith he's referring to is because Kathy is absolutely convinced she's going to die. She's accepted it. She's made peace with it. And there's no convincing her that you're fine. You're not actually going to die.
And he's implying that she's going to die because she believes it.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Writer Will, the piggy bank goes to Bud.
Indeed, actually, Kathy is calm in her room and on her bed and seems like she's just ready to shuffle off this mortal coil. No big deal. It's time. We all got to do it sometime. And now's the time for Kathy when suddenly the loud meows of Fluffy interrupt her thoughts. She excitedly races to her window to let her in.
Fluffy's not a bird no more.
She's just a regular cat. I'd be happy to see Fluffy too,
Yeah.
honestly.
I was, in fact.
Downstairs, the doctor says they need to figure out some way to get the death idea out of Kathy's head before she dies.
And we're going to have to do it really quick because the episode's about over.
We got like 2 minutes, doctor.
I've brought my drill. Let me get into that brain.
We must release the devil.
It's right at this time, though, as they're discussing this, Kathy's, who's renewed after finding Fluffy, races down the stairs to announce she's feeling all better and doesn't want to die anymore.
Well, doctor, thanks for coming over, but it seems we don't need to pay you now since you didn't do anything.
He didn't.
That's perfectly fine. It's the 50s. All of the suburban families just jerk each other off and support each other by doing services and going to dinner parties.
Well said. After a fade to black, the episode gets a wrap-up scene, which is pretty useless, but they probably had a minute that they needed to kill. So we're in the kitchen, and Betty's on the phone again. You guys think that it's about 38% of Father Knows Best as a whole is them on the phone?
Apparently, but
Yeah.
also on the phone having conversations that are too fast.
Yeah, well, it's like we're always complaining about people are on their fucking phones all the time.
It's
Same
always
thing.
been that way.
So Betty's on the phone again. This time it's Kathy's friend, Patty Davis. I wanted to make sure to get the full name.
Yeah.
Patty Davis.
I also put down full Patty Davis. Why did they say both
I don't
names?
know.
Just because Kathy knows a lot of Patties, she has tons of friends.
So Patty Davis wants her magic set back that she gave Kathy because you know why? The wheels fell off the roller skates that Kathy traded Patty Davis. And Patty Davis is like, okay, well, I want what I gave you back.
Kathy loosened that shit on purpose.
Oh, yeah. Or just it happened because of her body.
That could be too. Natural centripetal force or whatever.
Heavy use of skate.
So just as Kathy takes the phone, she spots Bud stuffing his face with the banana split we've been talking about the whole episode.
We finally got it.
It is Bud who ends up eating it after all, now that he feels better. So Kathy starts to threaten him immediately and says, she starts to get into what she wants to happen and then's like, I just did this. I thought he was going to die for real. I don't want to go down that road again. That was a dark place and a bad time in all of our lives. I'm not doing that until I conclude this transaction with Patty Davis. And she gets on the phone to Patty Davis and says, hey, if I agree to give you this back, I'm not magic anymore, right? And Patty Davis clearly on the other line immediately says yes. So
I like to think first she said, well, you are magic as a friend to me, but not in terms of, as you would phrase it, Kathy, voodoo hoodoo powers.
and in the midst of that, Kathy would have just been hanging up.
Yes.
Because that's all that happens is she just clicks and it's like, okay, good. Good job.
Kathy
Thanks, Patty Davis.
she even hangs the phone up very aggressively.
It like explodes.
Yeah.
So now that Kathy's off the hook and not magical anymore, we end our episode with Kathy turning to Bud and saying, hope you break your head.
Which is funny, objectively.
And then the loving parents, Jim and Margaret, arm in arm watching as their children threaten each other and hate
violence.
each other. And they think that's wholesome and loving
And that fucking music plays.
and fiend. That's all for Father Knows
Oh.
Best.
So yeah, that was 70 years ago, guys.
That was really just Kathy stomping her ass around. That's what that whole half hour was.
Yeah, Kathy was the star of the show, and she pulls it off, She does command every scene, because while the others have a very staid acting style of the time, Kathy just says stuff and just stomps when she walks.
She can carry a scene physically and not physically.
There are a lot of episodes. I had to reach for the Kathy-centric one. There are a lot of episodes that are tailored around Bud and even Betty,
Why?
which I've got to think would be really, really boring.
Yeah,
One of the highest rated ones is one involving Bud taking up boxing.
sounds awful.
Kid's like 40 pounds. What's he going to do?
Well, you never know. You might learn a good 1-2 combination from probably Jim, I would imagine. He's not very good until Jim helps him.
But Jim was, of
Probably-
course, a prominent boxer in his
and-
youth.
Of course. So
Who could
it
forget
had to have been.
the great Ollie Anderson fight?
I had to do what I did and pick a Kathy one. We didn't have that many to choose from.
You did good.
It's the only thing I could have
This
done.
was also fun because it gave Kathy something to do that was just really out there. Like the idea of Kathy and magic works really well because Kathy's sense of reality is already kind of teetering on the edge.
We learned a lot about trombones, too, and
Oboes.
a whole bunch of instruments. We had some breakthroughs ourselves, I
Yeah.
think. So it was good going back to this world of Father Knows Best. Maybe the last time. It's possible.
I doubt it.
Well, it's possible.
We'll see.
We'll see.
So far, we've revisited shows mainly that we find like certain characters amusing. They're not necessarily like high quality shows or shows we got wrong that we might want to reevaluate. I'll be curious
That's true.
if Van introduces a show that's like really like misunderstood. It's actually like very high quality. Maybe we misjudge it. We'll see what he picks later, but I just noticed that pattern between you and I, Spencer.
Yeah, and on that note, actually, Van, I have been wanting you to introduce to the audience what we'll be covering next, and now is a great time for that.
They were podcasters and good at their job, but they committed the ultimate sin and selected a bunch of shows that weren't Renegade. Before long, they were on the run. Bounty hunters, outlaws, renegades, which I already said once, but I'm getting my point further hammered home. That's right, we're covering Renegade again. And you're right, Brian. It's a show that's, a 9.5 out of 10 on IMDb?
Yeah, but we were wrong. It's actually a 10.5.
Exactly. It's that good. No, we are heading back to the world of Renegade. This was one of my earliest shows I covered, I believe, in the teens as far as episodes go.
It was a 2021 show, I know
Definitely.
for sure.
It's
And
one of those
first
shows
year.
that when we started this, you just couldn't wait too long.
Right.
You're like, I have to get
For
Renegade
good
in here.
reason.
Because it's
Or
awesome
for
and
good-
awful at the
For
same
good
time.
reason.
Well, guess what, guys? This episode is an all-timer, I think, particularly because we bring in a guest star who steals the show.
You mean an Academy Award nominee?
That's right. James Cameron. Nope, not that one.
There are no underwater episodes of Renegade.
I bet there are. There's a beach one that's kind of like Point Break, where there's this
Okay.
like outlaw surfer that Reno has to infiltrate the outlaw surfer group. It's amazing.
Why do I think Lorenzo Lamas is better suited for surfing?
He fits in quite
Yeah.
well. Let me back up. This is season 3, episode 15, Stalker's Moon, of, again, the 1990s syndicated show Renegade. The description is, when Bobby investigates and that's Bobby Six Killer, in case anyone was wondering.
Or if you want to be formal, Robert Stiller.
Six Killer, of course.
He is kind of in my personal Hall of Fame of characters we've covered.
Absolutely. Well, when Bobby investigates a campus stalker and gets taken hostage, Reno and Cheyenne start searching for Bobby. Now, what they don't state is that the hostage taker is James fucking Cromwell. And he's real good in this. It is an absurd, crazy episode, and I can't wait to talk about
There's a
it.
phrase people on the internet used to say, they probably still say it. It's kind of annoying. I just don't like repeated social collective phrases, but where someone might say this person understood the assignment.
Sure.
Well, James Cromwell did.
He certainly did.
He is not coming into this as some sort of like heavy-handed drama role, and he is not half-assing it.
Oh, no.
He understands he is in a silly television show and being asked to play like an over-the-top serial killer, and he does with that what someone of his caliber could do.
Absolutely. And it's going to be a lot of fun to cover. We'll be back next week to do exactly that. Renegade Season 3, Episode 15, Stalker's Moon. By the way, the moon doesn't make an appearance.
So if you like this kind of stuff, you like this episode, you like Father Knows Best, you like Renegade, you like everything about us and the Boob Tube Boys, check out our back catalog. If you somehow have just now stepped into it and caught us at this point, we've got a lot of episodes you can go listen to. The old Father Knows Best ones, the old Renegade ones. Last week we did Knight Rider. Go back and listen to the old Knight Riders. We have so much content. I don't even believe we did it all sometimes. It's incredible. So go back and listen to that. Check us out. We are also uploading some of the back catalog on YouTube if you want to listen to your podcasts in a video format site. You can do that. It's available. While you're listening to all those, get on your podcast platform of choice. Give us a 5-star review. Personally, I'm a Pocket Cast guy. I think you should probably give it a try and rate us on Pocket Cast.
I'm a Pocket Pal too. That's what we're called.
I
the
assume
fans of
you
Pocket Cast.
can rate on Pocket Casts, right? Okay, I haven't done that yet. So yeah, rate it on whatever app you're using. Find us anywhere online. We try to do some social media stuff. We have some cool drawings we put up every week on our Instagram. We are working on integrating into the huge new platform Blue Sky that's just going to take over the world. And we're all there, and we are going to post eventually. I think Brian did. But just one, and I'm just there, and I have.
I could read it if you guys want me to read it.
I'd love that.
Okay, hold on. It's really good. And
I joined it. I just haven't said anything.
There's something about Aerosmith. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
But that's not surprising because
it's on brand for us.
And because over at patreon.com/Bootu Inc. you can hear an Aerosmith bonus show.
Okay, so this is the sort of content you might see on Blue Sky from people like us. I can only have one first post on here. I better make this count. If Steven Tyler took the place of Al Pacino in Brian De Palma's 1983 crime thriller, they'd have to double up the F in the middle of the movie's title.
Scarf face.
Thank you. See? That's good.
It's perfect. And that's the kind of stuff you can find on Blue Sky or on anywhere you find the Boob Tube Boys. Check out our website too, bootuinc.com. And there's all sorts of stuff there. We are all over the internet, I promise. You just have to look for us, and you will be rewarded for your efforts. In the meantime, there's something that I did not tell you guys that I'd like for us to quit recording and go do. It's really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I brought over just a whole big pile of trash.
We can burn it.
I'm going to go out there, and we're going to burn it for hours on end.
When he says, say hello to my little friend, it's his penis. It's Steven Tyler.
There's a little scarf on it.